Hey everyone, welcome to Value First, a product-led sales podcast, a show where I interview product-led sales and growth leaders who share their secrets on how to grow revenue at SaaS companies. Today, my guest is Nadja Komnenic. She's the head of BD at Lemlist, the email outreach platform. She's one of the first hires and responsible for growing the team, building a structure, and growing the business from 1 to 8 million ARR. Nadja, great to have you. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Fred. Doing great. As I told you just before we joined the call, right now in Paris with my team, finally after 1 year and a half of me being stuck in my hometown, Serbia, finally rejoined with my team. So it's quite amazing to be here.
That is amazing. Well, speaking about your team, why don't you start by just explaining for listeners what Lemlist does, what it's solving, and what you do at the company?
Definitely. So maybe a quick intro. As you mentioned, I was the first sales hire actually at Lemlist. So when I joined, we were at 1 million ARR. We are completely bootstrapped. So we started the company 3.5 years ago, going from 0 to $8 million ARR in just 3.5 years. So I joined as the first sales hire, basically with a mission to set up the sales process, hire a team, coach the team, and then do some outbound to actually generate a bit more revenue. Since I've joined, obviously, like Lemlist is as you said, the cold email outreach platform. Right now, we're actually also supporting cross-channel prospecting, and it's basically a platform meant to building relationships. Everything that we focus on is all about personalized outreach. So really building that relationships with prospects, not spammy typical cold emails that you would be sending. So our mission is to help entrepreneurs around the world build those relationships with prospects, but current clients, and just grow their business by growing their genuine relationships.
Amazing. And we're going to go deeper into not using some generic outreach because you guys are really good at that. But I think this chat will be really insightful for businesses because Lemlist is a great example of merging a product-led bottom-up motion with a traditional sales outreach strategy. And you guys really, really do it well. So the one thing that I want to start is for product-led companies, for bottom-up companies, how would you go about building a message campaign? Because I say message because Lemlist supports LinkedIn and email. If you're a SaaS company, you have users signing up to your product, how would you go about starting building that campaign?
So it really depends on what type of campaign you want to run, obviously, and what kind of prospects you're reaching out to. In either way, the thing that obviously we are all talking about in 2021 and for the previous year as well is that every message you send out to your customers or current clients or potential clients, whoever it is, basically all of the messages should be very relevant and also personalized. When it comes to the structuring right now, obviously you want to meet your prospects where they are. So if they're not only on email, chances are you're going to get higher reply rates if you go also on LinkedIn and cold calling. So basically just combining those moments of doing cross-channel prospecting, adding on top of that also personalization and relevance, making sure that your outreach is not spammy, boring, and just generic, so that people will actually reply and open your emails. That's how I would go about it. For me, the starting point for all of the outreach itself is really knowing who you're targeting and why you're targeting them now. So having that moment of knowing that prospect right now might be in a buying moment and spotting that buying signals or trigger events, depending on how you call them, to actually conduct that outreach in the first place.
Yeah. What do you think are the biggest mistakes that people make? You talked about personalization. I have strong beliefs that like using company name in the email is not really personalization. Yeah. So what do you think are the biggest mistakes that people make when it comes to reaching out, whether it's cold or semi-warm or warm?
That's a great thing that you said about like a company name not being the personalization, and that's what we mean when we say personalization. I feel the word has been overused, so not a lot of people actually know what it actually means. So obviously, just using custom variables such as like company name, industry, or title is not something that you would call personalization. Personalization means that if you just think about, could this message or this email be sent to anybody else and it would still make sense to that other person, it's not personalized or relevant enough. This means that you as a receiver of that email can actually feel, okay, this person actually knows my business, know what I'm going through. They did the research on me and they're actually targeting me with something that can actually help me out. Any way that you show that in your outreach is what I call like personalization, more personalization / relevance. That's what I would call basically. And the mistake, as you said, is that one of the biggest mistakes maybe that I want to highlight is that typically people would go on LinkedIn and then they would say, hey, I saw your post about your dog or your cat and it was super funny and super awesome. So hey, I'm Fred from Links and I'm doing this and this and this. So not connecting the intro line where it feels personalized, but it's just something
Yeah.
that you picked up on LinkedIn, and then just continuing with whatever you wanted to pitch. So it feels fake and it feels even less genuine than when you would just simply send a cold email without any personalization whatsoever.
No, that's true. I've seen that a lot of using a personalized hook that has nothing to do with value prop. And you gave a comment recently in one of my posts about that on LinkedIn, is using a hook and then straight to pitching and having no link in between. What advice would you have in terms of, because that information is usually hard to get for sales teams? You have to be efficient. You have to not spend an hour on writing an email. Any quick tips or techniques that you see that are working well for you guys and for your clients?
Yes, definitely. So one of the best scalable tips that we are using right now at Lemlist is the moment when you're doing actually lead generation. So instead of just going out and just simply reaching out to people, it's all about how you build that initial list of people who you're going to reach out to. And all of them in that one specific list should have something in common so that you can scale the outreach and still make it personalized and relevant. To give you an example, what we've done for one of our campaigns is we've simply looked at our customer data and we tried to figure out what were the patterns that we are seeing repeating within our customers. And we noticed that one of our buying signals is any company that right now is he has a head of sales who is hiring new SDRs, for example. That itself is something that you can scale by going to Sales Navigator, basically searching for criteria, anybody who's hiring in sales teams or any job ads. And that is an initial moment where you know, okay, these are people are hiring. This is the pain that they might be going through. So when you start with that, you create a template around it, and then you personalize the first intro line. You do the research so you know what the company is going through, and then you personalize a bit more and make it relevant. When you have the proper buying signal, as I call it, like that's the trigger event for us, it's either hiring new SDRs or companies expanding into the new market. That's where you easily have immediate personalization or relevance, and then you just add a bit of cherry on top when you're actually creating the email itself. So that's how you can actually scale it.
Okay, interesting. Speaking of the actual campaign, another comment that I found interesting, and you give me a lot of advice, so I'm gonna mention it here. Not going into pitch mode too quickly. So speaking about the campaign itself, one advice that you gave me that I found super relevant is like, don't try to just build the relationship and get a reply and then have a conversation before you pitch. I think it's tempting for people out there to like want to have the result right away, want to pitch right away. But I posted about an email and you said, you know what? Wait, just use the hook, engage in a conversation. So building a campaign, I know that it's not a one size fits all, but how would you go about building the rapport too quickly, but not wanting to waste the other person's time versus pitching? I think that's an interesting subject that I want to get your advice on.
Definitely, that's a great question. So as you said, basically the biggest problem is that you just go straight to the pitch and then the relationship hasn't been built. You didn't still build any source of relevance for them that they are actually interested in talking to you. The goal, in my opinion, of your first email is to actually get a reply and potentially book a meeting, not even a demo. And during the meeting, during the conversation that you're having, that's when you do your discovery. Even before you go into a proper demo of discovering if the product fits you, you need to discover if they actually have the pain that you can solve. So that's when the conversation starts to happen. I personally sometimes have only campaigns where I just our networking campaigns, as I call them. So let's hop on a meeting. Let's just exchange on strategies. Let's figure out what you're doing that can help me out, or what I'm doing that can help you out. So during that call, when we hop on a call, obviously we would do a bit of a discovery, hidden discovery, where you just kind of dig into their pains, see if there are any. If they don't have any pains, then you don't go to pitch, and that's where you qualify. Obviously, I need to highlight that we are full cycle sales. So for me, it's quite easy to go from the initial moment of, sending an email, then booking a demo, then a meeting, then potentially having a proper Lemlist demo and converting. When you're like a huge organization where it's splitted, it's a bit harder. However, you as an SDR, if you're the one booking demos for your A's, you still want your A's to have qualified meetings, meaning that you would still do the discovery before they actually book that meeting. And then all of account executives basically just needs to close them. And it's better to book 10 qualified ones than 50 of
then
demos that are going to just
100
send your
shitty leads. Yeah, got you.
Exactly.
How would you go about framing that first email, though? Diving it again a bit deeper. One thing that has worked really well for me is asking for feedback, because if I send you an email with a good hook, hey, I'm building this tool where I can use the "we're early," like not excuse, but it's genuine. Like, I want to get your feedback, and by getting your feedback, I'm gonna see if you have the pain point and qualify you at the same time. But hopefully I provide value, and we talk about your pains, and we build rapport, and etc. How would you mentioned booking a meeting in the first email? That's something that a lot of people, I think, are struggling with, to go from hook, building rapport, to booking a meeting. What have you seen this work well in terms of the first emails and the actual content in it?
Exactly what you said right now. So for example, there are a couple of things that I implement regularly that just work for me, and they just keep on working. For example, if there is the source of the leads where somebody would post their own problem on LinkedIn possibly. So they would say, like, I'm struggling with my pipe drive integration with something, for example. And then I would just simply, hey, I saw your comment that you're having these problems. This is the YouTube link that I found that might help you solve this problem. When we talk about leading with value, we don't mean only like sending your company content or your company pages or your company articles, whatever it is. It means just helping with their problems that they have, if you can help solve them. It might be something completely out of your scope. And then just leading with that value, for example, for me worked. To follow up with that, I would just basically say, hey, so you're struggling with this. This is the article that can help you out. Also curious, I saw that you're right now expanding into the new market. We're also expanding into the US. So I would like to kind of connect on the different techniques that you're using and simply exchange on these topics. Would you like to have a chat this week? Basically, what that gets you is the meeting. Again, not a demo. It's a meeting where you would literally network and, as you said, qualify. And what you said right now with, like, you being an early stage product where you just need feedback, that's what we use as well. We used to use actually in the past. And whenever we have a new feature coming up, that's where I would also use it as a hook. So it really depends also on the business. But any way that you can kind of sneak your way into just having a meeting to actually have a conversation with somebody is, for me, the perfect way to get the first meeting. But I need to highlight one of the mistakes that I do see a lot is that people will book this meeting and they would just pretend as if they booked a demo. So once the prospect joins on the call, they just go straight ahead talking about their company and their product. It happened to me a lot of times, and I personally get a bit pissed when that happens.
I would agree. I always use the rule of you don't want to talk about your product or your solution for the first two meetings. It requires patience, but it helps you qualify better. It helps you like understand the pain, so that when you actually demo or you talk about your solution, it's way more contextual and way more relevant. So I agree. I think that's a big mistake that people make, is like, oh, I got you on a call and now you didn't know. We didn't frame it this way, but I'm gonna full on pitch mode. So I think that's super interesting. And when you're talking about adding value into your outreach, I see this working super well too. And I think that's the basis of also engaging in communities. And you guys have a huge community, but really adding value. You post a question, or you see that someone has posts about a problem on LinkedIn. It's like, hey, I found a resource that might be valuable. And that could be your first touch point. And that's it. Like, the resource doesn't have to be you. It's like, hey, I saw a great video on Nadia's YouTube channel. It doesn't have to do with links, but I'm going to forward it to someone. But I'm going to get to the community because you guys are kings at building community. But before that, I really want to pick your brain on how you guys, because you've built the structure for the sales team at Lemlist, how you guys are merging a bottom-up strategy with an internal sales team and having a direct sales approach. If you go to Lemlist's website, you can sign up for free. Your onboarding is amazing, but you still have reps. So how is that motion plan? How did you guys strategize the whole funnel?
I think that's very, Lemlist has a very unique case. So this is again for companies that are also maybe bootstrapped or limited with resources, and they're really trying to kind of have all hands on deck in different areas. Lemlist itself and our sales team is really integrated a lot with marketing. So we kind of wear two hats at the same time. Obviously, we have an amazing marketing team. However, we do like to take some of the things on our plate as well. So we're very heavy on LinkedIn brand as well. We simply just think as a sales team of a revenue engine of the company, and every SDR within my team basically kind of think like an entrepreneur. So we always come up with very unique approaches. That means that, for example, Simon and I, we have our YouTube channel. Irina is posting every single day on LinkedIn. All of them are having networking calls weekly. So our metrics and KPIs are not typical sales KPIs, instead of obviously like demos and revenue, etc. For us, one of the best ways that we've seen when it comes to kind of bottom-up approach within the companies that we are targeting, typically when we see inbound lead joining that is like a huge potential for Lemlist. Yep. Our team would connect if the CEO obviously is maybe testing out the platform, etc. We would connect with their SDRs and their sales reps on LinkedIn, just started chatting, potentially figuring out their pain points. And then if I, for example, reach out to the CEO, I'm already ready for a demo. I know what their pains are. I know what they are struggling with. So it's like quite easy to go about it. So I hope this answers your question. I know it's a bit.
It does. It does. So just so I can understand, you have leads, you have a really strong marketing, strong community that brings a lot of traffic to your website. You have leads that sign up for free, try using the product. And from what I understand, you guys use firmographic criterias and also milestones in the product to define which people you engage. You start with connecting with end users, SDRs on LinkedIn, and then at some point you reach out to the CEO to convert them faster. But do you also have a team that reaches out cold to prospects that may not have tried your product? I guess so.
Definitely. So right now, kind of evolution of Lemlist sales in general, it was first million was the founder-led sales. So our CEO Guillaume was the one basically doing sales for Lemlist. When I joined, I did pure outbound, so setting up the processes, simply just focusing on not current clients. Then I scaled my team. We started experimenting with inbound. However, our product is really product-led, so you can really easily onboard yourself. There is no need for extra effort from the sales team. We do help on demos sometimes when it's really needed to kind of consult somebody on their strategies, on their campaigns, etc., but not so much for showing the platform itself. So now the team actually focuses on outbound, actually creating that top of funnel through our LinkedIn, through our networking calls, etc., and basically doing cold outbound campaigns itself.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful, and it's a great example of how to merge a product-led approach to your product and also a sales-led motion. You guys use your community and automated messages to onboard users to make them successful, and then you still have sales reps that engage the most qualified users into your product and also do outbound. And you guys do it well with a few employees. So it's really, really interesting. Let's talk about the community aspect of Lemlist, because you've mentioned it. The 0 to first million was Guillaume's reach, his personality, his charisma, building the community, building reach. How would you go about starting a community, and what are the benefits that you guys have seen from having a really strong community?
Yes, so community has been the biggest driver of revenue for Lemlist. Guillaume started it actually in his first year of building Lemlist. It kind of happened spontaneously in the beginning. So obviously he was surrounding himself with a lot of founders, with a lot of businesses that are similar to what you're doing, Fred, right now, basically. And basically what was happening is that he was starting to build a community around himself. And soon enough, he basically built a Facebook community. The reason that it was on Facebook is because we wanted to be kind of out of work when people actually just want to network and chill and talk about business, but don't get stuck on Slack or LinkedIn, etc. So it was a place where they just simply exchange insights. And the reason that it grew so fast and so rapidly, and it became like one of the most powerful, I would say, communities on in B2B sales, is the fact that it was only about providing value. So there was no mention of Lemlist, no pitching at all. It was simply what are the pains that I'm facing that I can share with the community? What are we hearing from the audience that they're facing? They were constantly asking questions. Always the answers were very actionable. I think that was the biggest difference as well. And simply just finding any way that you can actually just help the audience that you're serving.
Yep.
Without going for any way of like generating, like when you have money in mind and like the budget and the revenue that you're going to make out of it, that's where everything fails. So if you really have a genuine desire to help, that's how it can be successful.
Yeah, and if you do it well, I think it could have benefits to so many core functions of your business. I'm a member of the Lemlist community, and that's exactly what you guys are doing. You're just posting tips, advice, like really secrets that you guys have found that you just share with the community, and it creates great marketing. It creates word of mouth. It creates leads for you guys, but it also helps support the existing users. Like someone can ask a question like, hey, how do you do this in Lemlist, blah blah blah, I'm stuck, and someone will just answer. So I think it's a great example of building motions, building a community, building a product that doesn't require to hire more employees to fix problems. And I think you guys, your support is handled apart by your community, your marketing is handled by your community. So I think that's really smart. One aspect of your community and one aspect of Guillaume growing from 0 to 1 million and then a bit further, and I mentioned it in the PLG sales ebook, is humanizing the sales funnel, humanizing the customer journey. And you do it through community. You guys are big on video. Lemlist, when it first started, it was really about like having personalized images and personalized videos. Can you talk more about how you guys use video, pictures? We see your faces everywhere. You're very personalized on LinkedIn. How important is that for you, and what's your strategy behind that?
Definitely. So one of the reasons that I feel that community and Lemlist itself grew is because instead of having Lemlist as a company, as a brand, it was a person in front of that brand. So we had Guillaume, who was like a person, so that people relate to people. So it was Guillaume's and his face that was everywhere. For you in the outreach, why videos really work well is because you're actually able to put your personality and your message across in easy human way, because people can see you, they can hear your tone of voice, your body language, and it makes much more human connection than it does with simple text, which text will never be able to replace. So that's why we really use a lot of videos in ourselves within our outreach. However, when it comes to our building our brand, basically in the community itself, I saw one of your posts that you were posting on LinkedIn as well about transparency. In my and the reason that I think also the Guillaume and what he's done with Lemlist itself is that he was quite transparent in everything that he was doing. So sharing his flaws, his failures, all of the numbers, all of the downsides of building a business. So I think that's where people really related. And when we're actually using our own video prospecting, so I use videos in most of my email campaigns, mostly in follow-ups though. I personally just use it either to share, okay, here are the mistakes that I made where I really sucked that I don't want you to repeat, for example, if I'm just adding a bit of a value, or I would kind of summarize my previous email just to kind of make it a bit more human. So that's basically
okay, so let's dive deeper on that though. You've mentioned you use videos mainly for follow-ups. Can you explain why? Because I think that's super smart.
Yes. So first reason is because videos take time. So if you want to send personalized video to every single person that you want to reach out, it gets a bit not scalable.
Yeah.
So the reason, obviously, it would be best if you could just send it in the first email to everybody, but I just don't. I want to kind of be efficient with my time. So the reason why I do it is I personalize the first email, and I do it just with the first intro line, maybe make it a bit relevant. And then for the people that some of them will just respond to the first email. Those who don't, they will receive a follow up with a video where I would actually create then a personalized video, being a bit more forward in why I think it would be relevant for them and why I think it could actually help them out, what I would like to get from that conversation. And the cool thing is I can embed it into the email itself. And while they're watching, they can actually, basically our emails would be, videos would be embedded on the landing pages that we would embed within the email. So when they watch the video, everything is personalized, customized to them. They would just book a meeting using the Calendly below, and that's about it.
Yeah, and I received the emails from Lemlist with the winners of like the week, for example, people that have really succeeded with campaigns. And what I've seen as a trend is people not like overdoing it in follow-ups, like sending 5 follow-ups that are, hey, just bumping up your inbox. It's just annoying. So making a bit more efforts into your follow-ups, like a personalized video so you can relate to the person, and going straight to the point and not annoying people. Like if they're not replying to you, find another way to add value or to get their attention of somewhere else. So I think that's really smart. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say I completely agree with you when it comes to the follow-ups, and also not being used properly. Like for me, every email, every touch point that you make with a prospect is a potential opportunity. And I feel like there's so much focus put on the first email that you send out, and then the follow-ups are like, okay, bumping this to the top of your inbox. Thoughts. And then nothing additionally that you provide, which then it's actually a second opportunity for you to make your case and potentially interest them again. And that's where people rush. They focus so much on the first email. People might be busy, just did not read your email, forgot to reply. Push them a bit more in the follow-ups, but do it in a careful way.
Yeah. And I think along the lines of community, along the lines of being thoughtful, I think one insight that we can get from Lemlist that's really important, and it's really crucial, in my opinion, to the product-led sales movement, is sales reps are the experts, the consultant. They're working alongside you. You have to think as really, okay, if I were a consultant helping my client reach the goal that I think he's trying to reach, how would I approach? And really being human through the process. And I think you guys are a great example of that. You and Simon have the YouTube. Guillaume we see his face everywhere, and like just reading the, hey, Lemlisters in my email inbox, like I have his voice in my mind. So that's really humanizing to the next level. How do you train your sales reps, and how do you form people inside the company to have that mentality of always being in the passenger seat with your user in the driving seat, rather than just chasing clients or chasing leads?
I have to say that it all comes down to hiring the proper people, because not everybody's coachable in this way, which is okay. So not everybody's going to just have that mindset that is needed. When we're hiring for Lemlist, the number one thing that we look at is whether they have the entrepreneurial mindset. So we don't just look for SDRs. We look for people who are going to be thinking outside of the box, coming up with new approaches, constantly thinking about how the company can grow in completely unique ways, not only being stuck on the, lead gen, outbound, demos, account management, and customer support, and that's it. Like really thinking outside of the box. So for me, the way that I kind of drive the team is that I'm really not micromanaging. So I'm really like letting them own their the things that they're working on, and I really praise when there's any new project or any extra mile that they make that is outside of their scope of work. And if they're not doing it, then it's like, okay, now we need to talk about it, what is happening, etc. And really like when you are leading as an example and you're the one who is actually doing these things as well, that's when you can actually see your team following your steps.
Yeah, that's great advice. And if this makes me think of the acceleration formula by Mark Roberts, the ex-CMO at HubSpot. And he said the best sales hires are ex-entrepreneurs or people with super high empathy and self-awareness, because they can put themselves in the shoes of of users and really act like a consultant. And I think that's really a
Mm.
valuable lesson for SaaS businesses who are starting, who are trying to build their sales team. Amazing. I think it's time to wrap up. You had the last point.
Just one last thought. Yeah, last thought. One thing that I really helped me out when it comes to training my sales reps is whenever I hire, I literally put them immediately on customer support calls and on
Smart.
just calls with clients. Just to simply talk to them. There is no hidden agenda. There is no outcome out of it. You're simply going to talk and you're going to help them out. And then do it and do it and do it until it gets into your blood. And then when you actually have a demo, you just do it the same way. It's just that it's prospect and not a client.
Yeah, I love it. That's really, really great advice. Well, I think it's time to wrap up. You're a very busy person. You have other stuff to do, a team to run. I'm gonna hop on the podcast bandwagon and ask you a few quick fire questions just to end this off the right way. So you ready?
Yeah.
Cool. What have I not asked you that you think I should ask? Classic sales question.
Anything about personal branding.
Okay.
The importance of building
what do
your
you
personal
suggest?
brand.
What do you suggest to build personal branding for people starting out there?
If you're on LinkedIn, start posting, be consistent, and really, 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 no matter the age, no matter the business, no matter what, just start building your network and your brand, and it's gonna pay you long term in so many different ways.
Yeah, I agree. Build the muscle, just do it. The hardest part is just starting. I made the discipline of posting 3 to 4 times every week for the last 6 months and went from 500 followers to almost 7,000. And it's really helpful to just start. That's great advice. Which CEO or founding team, aside from Guillaume and Lemlist, do you look up to and why?
I personally don't look up to any big companies, big founders, big enterprises. I look up to small businesses and business owners like you, for example, that are starting out, they're grinding in trying to make it out in the world. And anybody who is brave enough to do it, that's who inspires me. So there's not a single person, I would say, anybody who is just starting out.
Love that. That's a great answer. What's the most underrated tool, growth technique, or skill for sales in your opinion?
Creativity for the sales reps. To go back to the difference between the tool and the SDR is that they actually have a brain to think outside of the fixed pattern and stray away from it and find new ways.
Yeah, think outside of the box. Don't want to feel like everyone else. Amazing. Something you wish you knew when you were 20.
The importance of self-awareness in every single thing that you do, or any whether you're a founder, SDR, whatever your job is, in relationships, in business, in life, self-awareness is the key to everything, I would say.
I 100% agree with that. Amazing. Well, Nadja, I really enjoyed the chat. Hope our listeners will do too. I think you shared some great advice from building an early PLG sales motion from the ground up. If people want to learn more about Lemlist, they can go to lemlist.com. And what's the best way to reach you?
My LinkedIn profile. Maybe I can actually put it here. I don't know if
I'm going to add the link in the description for your LinkedIn. And also Lemlist. You're super active on LinkedIn, so I would have guessed that's your answer, but LinkedIn. All right. Well, amazing.
LinkedIn is the best way.
Thanks for your time. I really enjoyed the chat, and have a good one.
You too, Fred. Thank you for having me. Love seeing you again.